Some dogs react normally to life. And then there are dogs that treat every minor inconvenience like a full emotional crisis, deserving dramatic music and a close-up camera angle. Did you stop petting them for 3 seconds? Emotional betrayal. Did you leave the room? Abandonment. Did you refuse to share your food? Personal attack. Some dog breeds simply do not experience life quietly. Everything becomes dramatic. The barking, the whining, the screaming, the offended facial expressions, the emotional speeches they somehow deliver without using actual words. And honestly, social media made this even worse because dramatic dogs are basically built for the internet. The tantrums, the overreactions, the fake suffering, the screaming compilations. Humans absolutely love watching dogs behave like emotionally unstable little actors. But if you actually own one of these breeds, the chaos stops being a funny 15-second clip and slowly becomes your everyday reality. So today we're talking about the most dramatic dog breeds. The dogs that somehow turn simple daily events into full theatrical performances, while still being lovable enough that owners forgive them anyway. Before we start, make sure to check out our selected and recommended products linked down below. 1. Siberian Husky. If dog drama had a CEO, it would absolutely be the Siberian Husky. These dogs don't just react to life, they perform it. A normal dog might bark once if something bothers it. A husky reacts like it just discovered betrayal, injustice, and emotional suffering simultaneously. And honestly, the screaming is only the beginning. Huskies are famous for producing sounds that don't even feel biologically connected to dogs anymore. Screams, howls, arguments, weird talking noises, emotional speeches that sound suspiciously human. Sometimes living with a husky feels less like pet ownership and more like sharing an apartment with an unemployed theater kid. And the craziest part, a lot of huskies genuinely seem convinced they're winning arguments. Tell them no, and suddenly they start yelling back with full confidence like they're presenting counterpoints during a legal trial. Social media loves this behavior because, to be fair, it's hilarious to watch in short clips. The dramatic tantrums, the offended reactions, the screaming because somebody closed a door, the emotional collapse after being told they can't eat drywall. Huskies are basically algorithm-built dogs. But here's what people don't fully understand. This isn't occasional behavior. For many owners, the drama becomes a full-time lifestyle. Some huskies scream because they're excited. Some scream because they're bored. Some scream because they want attention. Some scream because existence itself feels emotionally overwhelming today. And somehow they always make it sound deeply personal. A husky never sounds mildly annoyed. It sounds like you destroyed its hopes and dreams intentionally. And honestly, the facial expressions make everything worse. These dogs somehow mastered side eyes, judgment, fake suffering, dramatic staring, emotional disappointment, all while looking like majestic wolves sent by nature itself. Which creates one of the funniest contradictions in the dog world. A breathtakingly beautiful animal acting like a malfunctioning opera singer because dinner arrived 4 minutes late. And despite all the chaos, owners stay obsessed with them. Because huskies don't just create noise, they create stories. Every husky owner eventually develops screaming stories, escape stories, tantrum stories, emotional damage stories. And honestly, most of them sound fake until you live with one yourself. 2. Chihuahua. Chihuahuas are living proof that physical size has absolutely nothing to do with emotional intensity. These dogs are tiny, some barely weigh more than a loaf of bread, and yet somehow they move through life with the confidence, aggression, and dramatic energy of a medieval warlord defending a kingdom. Everything offends a Chihuahua. A sound outside, threat detected, a stranger entering the room. unacceptable. A leaf moving suspiciously, potential assassination attempt, and the barking. Dear God, the barking. Chihuahuas don't believe in calm communication. They believe in immediate emotional escalation. A normal dog might observe a situation first. A Chihuahua immediately launches into full-volume defensive warfare, like it personally pays rent and security taxes for the apartment. And honestly, part of what makes them so dramatic is how emotionally reactive they are. These dogs get attached hard to their people, which means even small changes in attention can feel catastrophic to them. Stop petting them. Emotional betrayal. Leave the house. Abandonment arc begins. Pay attention to another dog. Now you've started a political conflict, and somehow they always act like the victim afterward, too. That's the funniest part. A Chihuahua can aggressively scream at a person for 12 straight minutes and still somehow look emotionally wounded when the person reacts negatively. Social media absolutely loves this behavior because tiny angry dogs are comedy gold online. The internet turned Chihuahuas into meme creatures fueled entirely by rage and unresolved emotional trauma. But living with one full-time can honestly feel exhausting if the dog isn't trained properly. A lot of owners accidentally encourage the drama because small dog behavior gets treated differently. People laugh at snapping, growling, resource guarding, aggressive barking, because the dog is tiny. But imagine if a large breed behaved the exact same way. Suddenly, nobody thinks it's cute anymore. And this is why so many Chihuahuas become emotionally chaotic little dictators. Nobody teaches them boundaries because the consequences seem smaller. The result? A dog with unlimited confidence, zero emotional regulation, and the survival instincts of an over-caffeinated security alarm. Now, to be fair, well-trained Chihuahuas can actually be incredibly loyal, affectionate, and funny companions. But dramatic? Absolutely. These dogs don't simply exist quietly in your home. They emotionally participate in every single event, like unpaid actors in a low-budget reality show. Don't forget to check out our selected and recommended products. They might just be the perfect tools to make your life easier when it comes to caring for your pawed friend. 3. Dachshund. Dachshunds are one of the funniest examples of a dog completely misunderstanding its own physical proportions. Because despite looking like a stretched-out sausage with tiny legs, these dogs behave like hardened war veterans that survived multiple military campaigns. The confidence is absolutely unbelievable. Dachshunds walk into situations with the emotional energy of a dog 6 times their size. Bigger dogs? No fear. Loud noises? Investigation required. Suspicious movement outside? Time to announce a national emergency immediately. And honestly, they make everything dramatic. These dogs don't simply bark, they accuse. A dachshund hearing somebody walk past the house reacts like it just uncovered criminal activity that authorities need to hear about immediately. And the stubbornness somehow makes the drama even worse. Because dachshunds are smart enough to understand commands, they just frequently decide cooperation isn't aligned with their personal vision for the day. Tell a dachshund to stop doing something and there's a very real chance it'll stare directly at you while continuing the behavior out of pure emotional commitment. And social media absolutely loves them for this. The dramatic barking, the fake bravery, the offended expressions, the tiny body carrying giant emotional reactions. They're basically cartoon characters pretending to be hunting dogs. Which honestly makes sense because dachshunds were originally bred to hunt badgers. Badgers. Somebody looked at this elongated creature and decided, yes, this should fight angry underground animals. And somehow the dogs fully believed it too. That fearlessness still exists today, which is why many dachshunds act completely convinced they can physically dominate situations they absolutely should not be involved in. And emotionally, these dogs are intense. A lot of dachshunds become extremely attached to their owners and react dramatically to being left alone, strangers, attention changes, routine disruptions, absolutely anything mildly suspicious. Some even develop the habit of fake suffering for sympathy points. You accidentally step near their paw, and suddenly they react like you violated international law. And somehow, owners keep forgiving everything because dachshunds are ridiculously charismatic. They're stubborn, loud, overprotective, emotionally theatrical. But they're also affectionate, hilarious, and full of personality in a way that makes people completely obsessed with them. Living with a dachshund basically feels like sharing your home with a tiny angry nobleman that believes the world is constantly disrespecting its authority. 4. Shiba Inu. Shiba Inus are what happens when a dog develops the personality of an emotionally unavailable cat, while still somehow remaining deeply offended by everything around it. These dogs are legendary for their drama, and unlike huskies who express chaos loudly and constantly, Shibas often deliver their emotional instability with cold judgment and terrifying confidence. The most famous example is obviously the Shiba scream. If you've never heard it before, imagine a tiny fox suddenly producing the sound of somebody being kidnapped in a horror movie because you attempted something deeply unreasonable, like trimming its nails. And honestly, that's what makes Shibas so dramatic. Their reactions never match the actual situation. A normal dog might dislike bath time. A Shiba reacts like basic hygiene is psychological warfare. And somehow they commit fully to the performance every single time. Social media absolutely worships this breed because Shibas are incredibly expressive in a very human way. Judgmental staring, dramatic avoidance, emotional manipulation, offended silence, passive-aggressive behavior. Somehow, these dogs constantly look like they disapprove of your life choices personally. And the weirdest part? People love it. The internet turned Shibas into meme royalty because they behave less like obedient pets and more like tiny, emotionally complicated roommates with boundaries and unresolved trust issues. But living with one can genuinely surprise inexperienced owners, because underneath the cute fox appearance is an extremely independent, stubborn, and emotionally intense dog that usually has very little interest in blindly obeying humans. Commands become negotiations. Sometimes the Shiba listens perfectly. Other times it looks at you with complete understanding before calmly deciding your request is beneath its dignity. And emotionally, these dogs can go from affectionate to offended unbelievably fast. A slight inconvenience, an unfamiliar situation, a disrupted routine, a tiny amount of discomfort. Suddenly, the dog behaves like civilization itself is collapsing. And honestly, the confidence makes everything funnier. Shibas don't panic nervously, they panic with dignity. That's what separates them from normal, dramatic dogs. Even during emotional breakdowns, they somehow maintain the energy of, "I cannot believe I'm being subjected to this disrespect." Now, to be fair, Shiba owners often become deeply attached to the breed, specifically because of the personality. These dogs are intelligent, hilarious, expressive, independent, weirdly charismatic. But dramatic? Absolutely. Living with a Shiba Inu often feels less like owning a dog, and more like coexisting with a tiny, emotionally complicated fox that constantly evaluates your worth as a person. 5. French Bulldog. French Bulldogs somehow turned breathing difficulties into a global personality trait, and humans collectively decided, yes, this is adorable. And honestly, Frenchies are incredibly dramatic dogs, not because they're aggressive or chaotic like huskies, but because they react to everyday life like emotionally exhausted little celebrities, constantly overwhelmed by existence. Everything becomes a production. The sighing, the whining, the dramatic staring, the offended faces, the emotional dependency. the noises that sound like an elderly man trying to start a lawnmower. These dogs somehow manage to look deeply inconvenienced by reality itself. And social media absolutely amplified this. French bulldogs became internet superstars because their faces are basically built for reaction memes. They constantly look confused, betrayed, emotionally tired, judgmental, mildly concerned about taxes, which makes every tiny reaction instantly funny online. But living with one full-time means experiencing the drama constantly. Frenchies are incredibly attached to their owners, and many become tiny emotional shadows that follow people around the house like anxious potatoes with trust issues. Close the bathroom door. Emotional devastation. Leave the house briefly. Possible abandonment storyline. Stop paying attention to them. Now they're staring dramatically into the distance like a divorced movie character during rainfall. And honestly, the sounds make everything feel more theatrical. French bulldogs rarely breathe quietly. They snore, grunt, snort, wheeze, and produce random dramatic noises constantly. Sometimes owners genuinely wake up at night wondering whether the dog is sleeping peacefully or preparing for mechanical failure, which sounds mean, until you live with one and realize it's completely accurate. And despite all this, people become obsessed with Frenchies because they're also affectionate, hilarious, cuddly, expressive, weirdly human emotionally. These dogs are masters of emotional manipulation too. Somehow, a French bulldog can look at you for 3 seconds and convince you that you are responsible for its suffering specifically. And the craziest part? It works. Owners forgive everything because French bulldogs constantly feel emotionally present. They react to life in such exaggerated human-like ways that people become ridiculously attached to them, which honestly explains why so many owners willingly tolerate. Snoring loud enough to alter sleep cycles, dramatic whining, emotional clinginess, premium medical bills, and random existential grunting, all because the little goblin looked sad for 4 seconds. 6. Beagle. Beagles are some of the friendliest, happiest, most lovable dogs you'll ever meet. They're also unbelievably dramatic when life doesn't go exactly the way they wanted. And honestly, the howling alone earns them a place on this list. These dogs don't simply bark when they're upset, excited, bored, lonely, hungry, confused, emotionally offended, or spiritually inconvenienced. They announce it to the entire neighborhood with the emotional intensity of a medieval warning horn. A beagle hearing something mildly interesting outside can suddenly sound like it's reporting the fall of civilization itself. And because they were originally bred as hunting dogs, that vocal behavior is deeply wired into them. Their whole job used to involve communicating loudly during hunts, which means modern beagles often treat apartment walls like mere suggestions for sound containment. And the weirdest part? A lot of them howl dramatically even when nothing is actually wrong. Denied food? Howl. Left alone briefly? Howl. Saw another dog? Howl. You opened a snack bag 3 rooms away. Emotional emergency activated immediately. And honestly, food obsession is where beagles become truly theatrical. These dogs behave like they haven't eaten in months, even if they literally finished a meal 14 seconds ago. A beagle watching you eat becomes an emotionally manipulative experience. The staring, the whining, the fake suffering, the dramatic sadness. Somehow they can make you feel guilty for eating your own sandwich in your own house. And social media absolutely loves them for this because beagles are naturally expressive and chaotic in a very relatable way. They've got dramatic voices, expressive faces, endless food greed, emotional reactions, chaos energy disguised as friendliness, which creates amazing internet content. But living with one can honestly feel exhausting if you're not prepared for how vocal and emotionally persistent they are. Because beagles don't really believe in giving up. If they want something, they commit emotionally, especially if the thing they want is food. And honestly, the confidence is impressive. A beagle can steal your sandwich, howl at you afterward, and somehow still act like you created the problem. Now, to be fair, they're also incredibly lovable dogs. Affectionate, social, playful, friendly, great family companions. But dramatic, without question. Living with a beagle basically feels like sharing your home with a very emotional food detective constantly narrating its personal struggles out loud. 7. Pomeranian. Pomeranians are tiny, fluffy dogs with the emotional energy of celebrities being chased by paparazzi 24 hours a day. Everything is dramatic. The barking, the reactions, the offended expressions, the spinning, the chaos, the desperate need to announce every single event happening within a 12-kilometer radius. And honestly, the funniest part is how seriously they take themselves. A Pomeranian weighs about as much as a bag of groceries, yet many genuinely behave like elite security professionals, personally responsible for protecting civilization. A sound outside, immediate investigation. Somebody walking past the house, national emergency. A suspicious leaf moving emotionally in the wind. Unacceptable behavior. And unlike calmer small breeds, Pomeranians rarely react halfway. Everything becomes maximum intensity instantly. These dogs don't casually ask for attention either. They demand emotional acknowledgement. Ignore a Pomeranian too long and there's a very real chance it'll start. Barking dramatically, spinning, pawing at you, fake suffering, staring into your soul emotionally, until somebody finally addresses the injustice. And social media absolutely loves them because Pomeranians somehow combine tiny size, giant confidence, expressive faces, chaos energy, and luxury celebrity aesthetics. They look like animated rich person dogs that escaped from a cartoon universe, which honestly explains why so many owners accidentally treat them like living plush toys instead of actual dogs. And that creates even more drama, because underneath all the fluff is still a real dog with emotions, boundaries, energy, training needs, and surprisingly strong opinions about everything. A badly trained Pomeranian can become unbelievably loud, reactive, demanding, and emotionally exhausting, especially because small dog behavior often gets ignored instead of corrected. The result? A tiny, fluffy dictator screaming at visitors while standing on furniture like it owns property investments. And somehow the confidence never disappears. That's the craziest thing about Pomeranians. No matter how small they are, they move through life fully convinced they are the main character. Now, to be fair, they're also affectionate, funny, playful, deeply attached to owners, full of personality, which is exactly why people forgive the insanity. Because despite all the barking, drama, emotional manipulation, and chaos, Pomeranians somehow remain weirdly lovable little attention goblins. And honestly, the dramatic personality is exactly why most owners become obsessed with them in the first place. So what makes a dog breed dramatic? Honestly, it's usually a combination of huge personality, emotional reactions, stubbornness, attention-seeking, and complete confidence in their own chaos. And the funny part is that most owners secretly love it. Because yes, dramatic dogs can be exhausting. They scream, they whine, they overreact, they emotionally manipulate, they turn tiny inconveniences into full theatrical productions. But they also feel incredibly expressive and alive. These breeds don't quietly exist in the background of your life. They participate in everything. And honestly, that's why people become so attached to them. A dramatic dog creates stories, memories, chaos, moments so ridiculous they sound fake when you try explaining them to other people. The internet loves these breeds because they're entertaining to watch. But owners love them because living with them never feels emotionally boring. even if sometimes the dog is literally screaming because dinner arrived 90 seconds late. At the end of the day, dramatic dogs usually aren't trying to make life difficult. They just experience every emotion at maximum volume. And honestly, that level of emotional commitment is weirdly impressive. Don't forget to check out our selected and recommended products. They might just be the perfect tools to make your life easier when it comes to caring for your pawed friend.